Hey guys, JohnnyCrims2000 here. Welcome back to my Let's Play of Fantastic Four. This is part 4, and instantly we are being thrown into the boss fight for this chapter. We are actually fighting up against the Super Skrull, which is that little regular Skrull looking guy in the back that the thing is fighting. In fact, I actually didn't know that we were fighting the Super Skrull until I looked at my notes. Looked at the notes for this game, but apparently we are. I thought that this was kind of just like an enemy rush. Obviously this portion of the game, this part of the level, is unique in that it actually looks like it's 3D. In fact, it's not really 3D. You're still just moving back and forth. In fact, I actually don't know how this works because it's not really 3D. You're just kind of going back and forth. But you are supposed to hit the Super Skrull there. I actually was just going for the bigger guys because I saw them as a bigger threat. And in fact, they are the bigger threat. But the Super Skrull, obviously, he's a very famous, well, now he's a very famous character. He debuted in Fantastic Four number 18 back in 1965, and he's actually been in a lot of video games. Before I get on with all the video games that he's appeared in, yes, that was the boss fight. That was pretty quick, right? Like I said, I actually didn't know we were fighting the Super Skrull. I was going for the bigger guys, but yeah, you do have to fight the Super Skrulls. The other enemies will just spawn infinitely unless you take out the Super Skrull. After that, we're still not done. We still have to get out of this world, which basically just translates to we have a couple more mooks that we have to destroy before we get out and move on to the next chapter of this game. But anyway, the Super Skrull, like I said, debuted in Fantastic Four number 18 in 1965. If you don't know what his powers are, because this game did a very poor job at showing them off, is he's actually a sort of like an amalgam. I don't know if that's the right word for it. He's a combination of all the Fantastic Four's powers. So he has Mr. Fantastic's like elasticity. He can turn parts of his body rock hard like the Thing. He can also turn parts of his body on fire like the Human Torch, and he also has parts of his body can turn invisible like the Invisible Woman, and I think he can also project shields and stuff like the Invisible Woman. I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, after this game, he also appeared in Marvel Ultimate Alliance. He appeared in Fantastic Four, Rise of the Silver Surfer, which was based off of the movie. He appeared in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which is probably the game that made him that much more famous. He's a fun character in that one. Probably his best incarnation so far, so if you want to see what the Super Skrull is about, I suggest you play that game. Capcom really does a good job at showcasing Marvel's characters, more so than some of the other games that they appear in. So that definitely did a lot to the Super Skrull, though I kind of wish that in that game that they had the regular Fantastic Four. So I guess their thinking was, let's just get the Super Skrull so we can use all 4 of the Fantastic Four's superpowers, so that way we don't have to just pick one. So at least that's my thinking. I don't know. He also appeared in the Marvel Superhero Squad, the Infinity Gauntlet, Marvel Superhero Squad Online. He appeared in Marvel Avengers Battle for Earth, which is that Marvel fighting game that used to Connect and on the Wii U, I think, which I still haven't touched. I heard it's alright, but apparently he's on it, or he's in it rather. And he's also in Lego Marvel Superheroes, which I actually just got the game, and I am looking forward to that. I love the Lego. I love Lego Batman, so I'm looking forward to Lego Marvel Superheroes. I actually just got it for Christmas. Yay! So I'm going to be playing that. But anyway, this part of the game is actually pretty strange, because the first time I played this game, again, I didn't actually know that we were fighting the Super Skrull. I'm pretty sure if you guys just saw this footage, you would just think that we were just fighting another boss rush when we went up to the elevator. There's really nothing that distinguishes the Super Skrull from any other Super Skrull, except I think that he's a little bit more bulky. So he looks a little bit more muscular. Like I said, his defining trait as a supervillain is that he's supposed to use some of the superpowers of the Fantastic Four, but in this game he doesn't do that, or at least he's never done that with me. Otherwise I would have known instantly, like, oh, that's the Super Skrull. So at first I thought, like, oh, that must have been like the midway boss, and now we're going on to fight Galactus, which I should mention right now. Galactus is unfortunately not in this game, so I should talk about him right now. Galactus debuted in Fantastic Four number 48. He is the Devourer of Worlds, so he's usually seen as sort of like the enemy that is in video games or in comic book series and limited series or whatever the case may be, whenever you want to put all the heroes together. So Galactus, for some reason, even though it says in this game that while we're going through this, this stage, this chapter in the Skrull world, His whole thing, and the reason why the towers and stuff are falling and there's pretty much just mass chaos all around us, is the fact that Galactus is actually in the process of devouring the scroll world. That's why you guys see back there in the stage, in the background there, the towers and stuff are all falling down. But Galactus never appears. The first time I played this game, I thought he was going to be the final boss of this chapter, but he isn't. I've heard somewhere that there might have been something with copyright. That's why I mean, we don't even see him. Like, we don't see him. We hear about him, but we don't see him. Which is not that far off from Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer movie. Ka-ching. That's right, I made a reference to that. Kind of like that. We hear about him. You know he's in the background, but we never really see him. And no, that stupid cloud at the end doesn't count. Video game form, Galactus has been in a couple of video games. I mean, he's been in more than Mole Man, for God's sakes, but he hasn't been in that many video games, oddly enough, which I guess it would be kind of hard to implement him into a video game, seeing as he's omnipotent and omniscient. But before this game came out, he was in Silver Surfer for the NES. He was in Fantastic Four: Flame On for the Game Boy Advance, which I might do a Let's Play of soon enough. I actually kind of like that game. It's not the best game. You get to play as a Human Torch throughout the whole thing, but it's better to do a game where you have one good developed character instead of doing 4 not so developed characters. He appeared in Marvel Ultimate Alliance. He actually was doing the same thing in that game as well. He's taking over the Skrull homeworld, so they reused this part from this game in that game as well, although it was done a lot better. He was in Spider-Man: Web of Shadows for the PS2 and PSP. He was Marvel Superhero Squad Infinity, Marvel vs. Capcom 3 as the final boss, Lego Marvel Superheroes, and in Fantastic Four Pinball for Pinball FX2. So that's pretty cool. But anyway, in this part, we're actually getting towards the end. You guys see that glorious foreground structure there. At this point, I'm thinking like, oh, we're about to face the final boss, but really all you have to do in this part is just take out the mooks. You take them all out, and you go to the back there, which can actually be pretty wonky because the way that the game controls and stuff like that. This part isn't really all that much fun, to be honest. Like I said, it kind of builds to a big climax, but you never get it. See, it just tells you to go right. You go right, and that's it. That's the end of the chapter. So next on, we're Atlantean Attack. Next stop, New York Harbor, where an aquatic attack appears to be work of Namor, Prince of the Seas. Can the Fantastic... Oh. So now we are back in New York, but we are fighting creatures from Atlantis, thanks to Namor, the Submariner. And this is really the part where you get quite possibly the most annoying regular enemies of the entire game. Now these guys aren't really all that bad, although they can be when they swarm on you. The enemies that are the most painful are these big whale looking. There they are. Those guys are really annoying, and they can really drain your health, as you guys just saw there. He pretty much wiped out my entire team. The problem with it is that they're big, they're strong, they have the ground stomp move that can pretty much take out all of, you know. It's kind of like the Incredible Hulk, where as long as you're on the ground, it'll damage you. And they have that loud screech that you might have heard just there, where that one, it doesn't even matter where you are, it stuns you and it does so much damage. So these are quite possibly, these whale things are quite possibly the hardest enemies, regular enemies of the entire game. Look at that. He just wiped out my entire team. That one stupid whale just wiped out my entire team. And this is probably the part of the game where if you're playing without the free play cheat code on and without the CPU, I mean, God help you if you've got this far by yourself. I mean, you must be amazing at this game, way better than me. But this is the part where you're probably going to die a lot. And because we're in a harbor, as you guys just saw there, the Invisible Woman kind of just fell into the water. Like some of the previous levels, you may notice here that I'm kind of just pushing the enemies into the water. For some reason, they die, even though they're supposed to be from Atlantis. They're supposed to be okay with that. And as you guys can see in the background there, Mr. Fantastic got stuck. He wasn't able to come with us for some reason. That's bad AI programming. And you guys may see soon enough that as long as we go to the right, he's going to continue going to the right along the other bridge, along the other pier, which is, again, bad programming on their end. He's not programmed to kind of follow us. he kind of got stuck in the corner. But yeah, this level can be a big pain, and really the fault is because of these stupid whales. It wouldn't be so bad without them, but the fact that they're there is just it's painful. I'm so glad that this is the only level that they're in, actually. And for some reason that one glitched into the water. And again, I don't know how he dies because he's a freaking whale. He should be fine. But whatever, as long as it gets rid of him. And now we're on a boat, and oh my goodness, yes, there is a, I think those are supposed to be the Twin Towers in the back, so, ugh, sensitive issues there. You get to this area here where we're on a boat, and we're constantly having these enemies come up to you. Now, these guys are actually more aggressive than the Skrulls because they're constantly shooting at you. The Skrulls did shoot at you, but they weren't, their rate of fire wasn't as bad. Now, one thing that you have to notice, or you have to keep in mind is, like I didn't, is that you do have this hole in the middle of the ship. I think that's where you're supposed to dump the fish or whatever. I don't know, I'm not a fisherman. But you do have to keep that in mind because, as you guys probably just saw a couple seconds ago, you can fall through it. I don't know if the enemies can, I mean, I'm sure the enemies can still fall through it, but I'm pretty sure you're more likely to fall in yourself than being able to throw the enemies into it, so I don't really bother. In fact, you guys may have noticed that I tried throwing them in outside the boat, but because the walls of the boat are so high, you can't do that so easily. But anyway, because the battle with the Namor is going to be so short, I should talk about him. Namor is actually one of my favorite, probably one of the more underrated, the most underrated Marvel characters in my opinion. He's the first ever superhero in the Marvel Universe, which we're going to fight here. He's kind of a pushover, so that's why I'm talking now. He debuted in Motion Picture Funnies Weekly way back in 1939, so he's like the original Marvel superhero. And he's actually, he has a pretty, despite the fact that he's such an iconic Marvel superhero character, he's, you know, from a historical standpoint, he has quite possibly the worst track record as far as major Marvel superheroes is concerned. He's in this game. He's a playable character in Sega Spider-Man, which is a beat-em-up that I will be doing a Let's Play for soon enough. He made a cameo appearance in Captain America and the Avengers. Go check out my Let's Play. It's on my channel. He made a cameo appearance in Spider-Man 2000 for the PlayStation 1 and 64 and Dreamcast in the What If mode. And he appeared as a cameo in Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and he was playable in the Game Boy Advance version, which was pretty crap. So, yeah. Namor hasn't had the best history as far as video games are concerned. And now we're going on to the last chapter. Is the world doomed? Using electrical components collected throughout the travels, Mr. Fantastic has created a time machine which takes the heroes to the root of their problems. Doomsdat. Yeah. By the way, that last enemy which we completely owned was Atuma, who we actually get to see again in Marvel Ultimate Alliance. He debuted in Fantastic Four number 33. He's from Atlantis as well, and he was behind the whole attacks on New York from Atlantis. But now we are on to the last chapter of this game, and Doomsdat, which is the place where Dr. Doom likes to hang out, Latveria, if you will. Now here we are introduced to Doombots. Those are those maroon-colored robot-looking things. Now this is actually a pretty nice-looking level, all things considered. I like the sort of like the, I don't know if it's considered Eastern European, but very European-looking backgrounds and the architecture and stuff like that. The Doombots themselves, they're really not that hard. The only thing that may throw you off is that they have a very, very long stalling period, meaning that once you're done doing a combo on them, they like to kind of just do that thing right there where they just kind of bend over, kind of like a robot, or they sit on the ground and they wait. So it can't, it's really more like padding more than anything, you know, because it's like I'm beating him up, but like right there, we're all waiting for him to get up, and we're all waiting for him to get up, and it's like, oh, come on, just get up and take your licks, sir. But they're really, really not that hard, all things considered. This is a piece of cake after having fought those stupid whale monster things in the last level. By the way, that last level was so short. I think they were banking on the fact that people were going to have a lot of trouble with those whales, but because we have free play and we have infinite continues, it wasn't that big of a deal. Normally, you probably would have game overed in that level. So this is more or less sort of like a breather section, at least this part, because things are about to get real in the next part coming up. But anyway, these parts here, you can go into the shops or the little houses, and there are different little items, so like health items, which, to be quite honest, because we have free play on, doesn't really mean much because, you know, again, we have infinite continues, so I don't really bother. The only thing that I may sort of go in there for is to replenish my force power, which, as you guys can see right now, is at empty. So unless you like to use your force power a lot, then I suggest going in there, or I suggest avoiding that and going in there only to replenish your force power, because really there's no point. But yeah, we are getting towards the end of the game, guys. This is quite possibly the area in the game, obviously for obvious reasons, where you get to see the most enemies on screen at the same time, and it's, all things considered, it is pretty impressive from a technical standpoint to have this many enemies on screen at the same time. Granted, they're not the most technically, you know, from a technical standpoint, they're not the best looking enemies. I mean, I don't even know if they're sprites or they're actual 3D models, but it is pretty impressive to see, especially on the PlayStation 1, a system that was known to not be that great as far as 3D models or, you know, having multiple things happen on screen at the same time. But anyway, that was a very abrupt end. I will see you guys in part 4.